Welcome, everybody. We are coming live from Doola HQ. We're at a different desk setup today. We're at the big widescreen monitor. We're going to give this a try. And for today's topic, we're going to be covering building a team. Now, we love the live chats. Don't be shy. Pop it on the live chat. Well, honestly, we'll put the live chat on the stream. I haven't done this in the past, but I tried it out this morning. So if there's questions, if there's feedback, it's on the stream. So let's see how this goes. We'll try it out live. And today's topic is going to be covering building a team. And there's every mistake in the book, I think I've 100% made. And I think building a team and hiring and managing is something which is one of these buckets of unteachable truths where you can read every book, you can watch every YouTube video, but until you experience it, it's hard to really learn. Someone tell me if they disagree with that, but that's my thought, is that there are these unteachable truths that you can't really learn until you go through. Everyone says, I'll give you one example. Y Combinator had this piece of advice of you should hire slow and fire fast. And what that means is you typically will do the other thing where you hire fast because you're in a burning hole and you need help, but you then fire slow because you're very scared to have a hard convo. And it's clearly not a good fit. It's best for everyone involved, but you are too slow to do that. So that's one of these unteachable truths where I talk to so many founders, and I've made these mistakes too, where the advice is given, that was given from day zero. And over time, you just have to learn the hard way. Unteachable truth. Okay, name unknown, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. And you agree with that? Awesome. I guess while we're on the topic, name unknown, I'm curious what your biggest challenge is when it comes to if you're building a team, hiring, managing, retaining top talent. And I'm curious if you have any candid feedback on what I just shared. So that's the first thing in terms of unteachable truths. So I'm sharing that as a preface, even though I'm about to talk about it, which is a bit counterintuitive because I don't think this is actually the best way to learn. The best way to learn is by doing. That being said, I don't have the book right here. I'll go through a couple things. The book's actually on the bookshelf, but if there is a book I do recommend, it's called The Who Hiring Method. So if you don't want to listen to this, you'd like to read, just go read that book. Now, the concept that book talks about, the way I think about this is who, then what. And typically, if you have an issue in your business, it's not a what issue, it's a who issue. And that's because, if you think about it, the order, which we oftentimes think is that it's profits or build the thing. But a framework I heard, which I liked, is people, product, profits. Take care of the people, it'll take care of the products, it'll take care of the profits. And it sounds kind of obvious, but the product doesn't have to be what you're building, writing code on. It could be the social post, that is the product, or it could be the operational workflow. People, product, profit. And from that lens, you're starting with the who before the what, which is maybe the product, and then the outcome is your profits or the usage for your business. So that's the other thing. And I heard this in so many things in life. You're usually only one hire away from unlocking a plateau or something that's a bottleneck in your business. So I hope that resonates with someone, but people, product, profits, and who, then what, not what, then who. Another framework, which I learned from this book called Traction, is the right person, right seat framework, which means you have to have the right person, the who, in the right seat, defining what they're responsible for. We use this system. Traction talks about this concept called the people analyzer. And it sounds kind of scary, but really what you're doing is there a value fit? For doula, that's, are you detailed? Are you a doer? And are you doula obsessed? You can't have any negatives there. It has to be all checks. At least it can be one check minus, but it has to be all checks or one check minus. That's the bar. And then do you get the role? Do you want the role? Do you have the capacity to do the role? And my favorite analogy for understanding capability versus motivation. So do you get the role? Is do you actually just understand what's required? So let me use an example of playing chess. Like, do you understand how the game works? Do you just get it? Do you get, we're playing chess, not checkers. Do you get it first? Then there's do you want the role and do you have the capacity to the role? And I think this is a capability versus motivation. Think of want as motivation and then capacity or capability. And my favorite analogy that I heard for this is, let's say I held a water gun to your head. I'm not going to hold water guns to anyone's head, but as an example, let's say I held a water gun to your head or a gun to your head and I said, If you don't run a marathon, I'm pulling the trigger. You know what you would do? If that was happening to me now, I haven't run a marathon in my life, but I would finish the marathon. I don't care if I pull my hamstring, I would crawl. You'd be able to finish. It might be ugly. You might literally crawl to the finish line. But if someone held that gun to my head, I'm finishing the marathon. That is motivation or want. And I think the unlock here is you have to ask yourself, if there's an issue going on with talent in the company, are they motivated? And I'm not saying, by the way, to hold the gun or the flamethrower, but the point is that's a motivation issue. If I'm not finishing the marathon, but I can do it, motivation. Do I want it enough? And what can I do as a leader, as a company, as a team to create that environment or motivation? Then there's capability or capacity. The way I think about this is, let's say that same gun is held to my head, and Magnus Carlsen, who's the chess grandmaster, is sitting across from me. And the person holding the gun says, you have to beat Magnus Carlsen or trigger's being pulled. Bye. Like there's no more me. It does not matter. There's no way I can just through motivation learn how to play chess and beat Magnus Carlsen. That is capability. And that doesn't mean over time, because I think smart people can learn anything. Again, I might have a ceiling. Even if I started now, I might not ever be a chess grandmaster, but over time I could get good at chess through repetition, through consistency, and through volume. But that is capability. I literally don't have the capability. No amount of motivation can make me capable. So do you get the role? Do I understand chess? Do I want it? Could I finish the marathon or do the training sessions if someone had a gun to my head? And then do I have the capability? Can I be at the grandmaster level, or now am I at this level? And no amount of motivation or a flamethrower or let's go encouragement is going to make me do it. So I hope that analogy resonates, capability versus motivation. And when I heard that analogy, it was a huge bucket of cold water because it just forces you to question, can I do more? Can you do more to motivate someone? Or is it just purely a capability issue? And if it's a capability issue, that's okay. It doesn't mean there's technically not a fit. It just might mean there's a different seat where that person is capable. So to summarize, right person, right seat. And then do they get the role? Do they want the role and have the capacity? And think of that Magnus Carlsen analogy. That is one that resonated with me. Okay, we got a couple comments here. So from Jake Stiggs, true, just hired recently. And I'll pull these up one by one. Just hired recently and everything changed. I wish I hired the right person ages ago. Thanks for sharing, Jake. I'm curious what you learned. What do you think you could have done differently going back? I learned from hearing insights there. I think one of the things the Who hiring method talks about is a much longer, more in-depth interview cycle where you're effectively putting more of the work up front, an ounce of preparation, pound of cure, which is, again, an unteachable truth, what a lot of people don't do, which I also haven't done. Right now, my biggest struggle is finding partners or a team that can match my drive. I don't blame everyone. People come from different backgrounds and experiences. I'm curious here, in terms of the drive, a big enough why can overcome any how. I wonder if people at the company get the why. Because what I found is that if someone truly gets the why, people can do insane things. Whether they're, like, if you think about in the military, for example, people in the military don't make the most money compared to other roles, but they'll go do things, heroic things. They'll run into battle fire and go on the craziest missions where they're risking their life for something bigger than themselves. It's not about the money. So I know you didn't mention the money here, but I think a big enough why can overcome any of the hows. So I would think here, this is something which I think about a lot too, is how can you create the why or constantly reiterate the why as well? The hardest part for me is knowing what I should compromise on and what I shouldn't. Thanks for being vulnerable and sharing there. I think, again, I'm very curious here. If I don't think you should compromise on your company's values if they're important to you, but maybe the standard you're holding someone to is not needed for the role. Maybe it's like a one size fit all standard. That isn't a value. I'm trying to think for a specific role where, maybe in one role, this criteria matters way more. It does matter in one role, doesn't matter in another. So I'm curious if there's any additional double click there, name unknown. Jalfonzi, how's it going? I watched a podcast on business and they said to look for people that have that give a shit factor, essentially the people that actually care. How do you test for this in an interview? One way I think is when you hear someone tell a story about what they did, the way they talk about it and the level of detail they get into. And there's a couple questions I like. The way you can ask this is, one question I like is, what's the biggest mistake you ever made? Or if you could go back in your current role, what's the biggest thing you wish you'd done differently? And you can tell by someone's response there if it eats at them, because it's like, I learned a lot, and I won't call it regret because I learned from it, and it's bound to happen mistakes, but you can tell from the way they answer and how detailed they are and just the way they describe it if it's, oh, I'm answering the question to answer the question, or no, I actually care. I give a shit in this case. So I like that question. Another question you could ask is, I sometimes ask this is, tell me about, how do I phrase this? I say, tell me about the time you worked the hardest you've ever worked in your life. You don't just magically do that. What was your goal? What were you trying to achieve? And then what were you working so hard on? And I've heard all different types of responses here. It could have been there was a big tax deadline coming up, or a huge project, or training for a sport, or supporting a family member. But that you can also just hear the fire in someone. Like, do they care? Because typically, if you're working hard, it could be because someone told you to, or no, there was this goal I needed to achieve, and I wasn't going to let anything stop me. And you can tell that they cared there. And as long as they're in the right environment in the company and a role they can succeed in, or at least grow into, that should translate over. It's never perfect, of course. That's why there's an interview process, and that's why there's an onboarding time period, and that's why sometimes there's not a fit. But I do like that translation of, cool, I've seen the fire in this other example. There's no reason to believe that shouldn't be able to translate over into a new environment. Okay, keep the questions coming. We got the stream on the screen, the live chat up here. Another thing which I think is worth calling out here is mission driven companies versus mercenary companies. And the way I'd explain this is, if you think of a mercenary, in the traditional sense, they are being paid for protective services or for going on a mission to, defend someone or attack someone or fight someone. They're a mercenary getting paid for, I'll go do the thing. Mission driven would be, that doesn't mean you can't get paid, but the mission would be, I'm doing it in pursuit of this mission. I do think overall that there's pros and cons of both. But I think my belief is that if you have a mission driven company, it helps in so many other ways. Because if you're a mercenary, I think it's inherently more transactional. It's purely what's in it for me and what's in it for you. And that isn't to say that in a mission driven company, those things don't apply. I think they actually do. What's in it for me here as part of this transformational tour, the Alliance talks about this, or what's in it for the company? What can I help the company do? So there are transactional aspects. I think it's naive to say there aren't. But if you're a mission driven company, I think it helps in so many ways, where if you're comparing two jobs or two opportunities, wouldn't you want to work at the company which is trying to democratize access to American entrepreneurship? I guess I'm doing a self plug for Doola here, versus the, hey, here's the job description, we just want you to do this. I think having that aspiring mission can excite people more. And I know this because it excites me. And when you build something and help people achieve that goal, it can be really addicting. That's the best way I'd put it. It's addicting. It's a dopamine rush which never ends, where every day getting the review never hurts. Every day getting the review never gets old. The negative reviews hurt because there's friction for this person achieving the mission which they trusted you to do. So I do think, don't sleep on having a mission-driven company. I remember early on, I used to think, and it's so easy to think, what's the point of defining the value of the mission? We're just one person, we're three people, like who cares? As you grow, though, it matters. And even when you're a few people, when nothing's working, everything's broken and cobbled together by duct tape, I think there's a ton of value in having that mission to keep you going in those times too. Okay, Jalfonzi here. Let me pull this up on the screen. I watched follow-up response here. Thank you. I've made a note of these questions to ask in an interview. Awesome. I'm curious if you have any questions that you like, Jalfonzi, or you've been asked as well. Anything that comes to mind there. Okay. Question here. Where do you see Doola in a few years and the impact of AI in new business, as AI is enabling every individual power to create one-man business with few people? This is a great question. Where do I see Doola in a few years? Working with a lot more founders. How do you work with more founders? We provide more value, and we don't only provide value from starting businesses, but we help educate you on how to start a business. We help you scale a business. We help you not only get to first sale, but then get to scale. The more value you can provide, the more people that will come to you. If you provide the value, think about the last time you referred something, you got value, it was so good, you wanted to share with someone, the flywheel spins. Impact of AI on new businesses. I think we're in the coolest time ever to be alive. You can go from idea to idea to concept faster than ever before. And there's so much opportunity to improve efficiency within businesses, to develop new products more efficiently. And the whole point of this, if you remember, is that means the end consumer or business, if you're direct to consumer or direct to business, gets a better product, which means better tools we get to use or products we get to buy and better tools for work as well. And imagine that just happening faster across humanity. I think it's so cool without a better way to put it. And I do think it absolutely is enabling, to your point here, tech guy, individuals to do things that previously would have taken teams. That doesn't mean it will replace people. My favorite line on this is that AI won't replace you, but someone who knows how to use AI will. And I think that's true. But we have a philosophy of human in the loop. We do not want to replace humans. We think human touch is so important. We offer free demos on our website. You can actually scan right here and you can book a free demo with us. If you have questions, you can do consultations post-purchase. We have people you can talk to. We have actual human bookkeepers on our team, CPAs, licensed tax professionals. I think it's so important, but to give you an example there, imagine you have a bookkeeper who can serve 50 clients. In a world where you put the Iron Man suit on them, right? Tony Stark, he puts the core in, he can fly, he can shoot lasers. In a world where a bookkeeper has the Iron Man suit on, they become Tony Stark. Why can't they serve 500 clients? Why can't they serve 5,000 clients? Might sound insane, but I don't think it's insane. Where imagine if before someone would have to manually go through transaction by transaction. What if the Iron Man suit automatically categorizes it, trained on 1 million previous transactions with an error rate of 0.01%? All of a sudden, one person can now serve more folks. What if before they would do a personal consultation call, but they'd have to dig through emails and previous context to understand the situation? What if AI can aggregate all previous touch points, their compliance deadlines, where their business in terms of revenue, and have a little cheat sheet guide of talking points? Again, it doesn't replace the value that human can provide, but 95%, maybe 99% of that previous manual work has been automated. Huge. So fantastic question here. Let me know if there's any follow-ups there, tech guy, but I think AI can have a huge impact on every single business, and I think it will on Doola as well. As a reminder for folks, the initial topic for today, which we started on, we circled back a bit, was building a team, hire, manage, retain top talent. You can go back in the video. This will be on the channel where we covered a few analogies, people, product, profits, these unteachable truths, the concept of sometimes you just have to learn it for it to really sink in. We talked about capability versus motivation. We talked about the people analyzer, value alignment, gets it, wants it, the capacity to do the role. And we talked about interview questions to see if someone has the it factor. And then we talked a little bit about the impact of AI. So we've gone all over, but again, we love the live chat. New question that came in here. We always love the live chat. Question here. What is the size of Doola and how does the day look like for the team? Right now, Doola is just over 90 people, fully global team. I'm here in New York City right now. And day in the life for the team, it really depends on the team. I can share mine in the mornings, and I actually just did this. I've been doing this on YouTube via live stream. Mornings, deep work. That's where no meetings. Ideally, I get at least 3 hours. If I can only get 2, I'll take 2. If I can get 4, I'll get 4. The earlier I wake up, the more deep focus time I have. But that is my heads down time to get into flow state. That's my maker mode. Then at about 10 or 10:30, I flip to manager mode. That's where meetings, unblocking the team, context switching, pilot on, manager mode. And the other thing which I learned from this book, High Output Managed by Andy Grove, meetings are the medium by which managerial work gets done. When I heard that, I was like, holy crap. I used to think of meetings as a necessary evil. But then when I heard meetings are the medium by which managerial work gets done, it completely flipped. I wish I read the book years ago. Completely flipped my viewpoint on meetings. They're literally just the medium. Think about if you're Michelangelo, your medium might be the pick or your hands. If you're a manager, a meeting is the medium by which you work. It's your scalpel. It's your baseball bat. It's the medium. It's how you do work as a manager. You have to have meetings. And if you then think about it, if that's the medium, then your job becomes how do you have the best meeting? And the way you have the best meeting is you have the best preparation. Like anything else in life. How do you hit the game winning shots? Because you practice your free throws, you practice your shots. Ounce of preparation, pound of cure. And then what that looks like is okay, if I have these meetings, a lot of my heads down focus time is thinking, what am I covering in this meeting? Is this going to be the best use of time for the meeting? Is the agenda set? Are we actually asking the right questions? And that flip for me made, before it changed it from, I thought the only way I'm doing work is heads down on a task or writing something or sending outbound emails. And don't get me wrong, there still is some of that. There's a lot of that actually. It depends on what I'm working on. But if the meeting is the medium, then the work becomes how do you give yourself the most leverage during that meeting? And I think preparation is the key there. Anytime in life, I think if you feel nervous about something, maybe there's butterflies, but if you're prepared, it goes away. And I felt this in so many things. Yes, there's going to be high stakes situations, but even in a meeting, if I'm prepared and I've done my work, you feel a lot less nervous, whether it's pitching an investor or a team meeting where you're presenting something. Okay. As a reminder for everyone, we go live every week, rain, snow, sun, or shine. And if anyone has any questions about starting a business, launching a business, leveling up, anything we covered today, you can schedule a demo right here at doola.com. You can schedule up here, you can schedule here. Live from New York City, we will be back next